Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Avacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's A-B-A-C-O. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Manier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the Internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360 and WIFI 1460. This is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos Radio Show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I'm Rick Trader, and coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, the way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, and around the world on the internet via our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotRide.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And joining me today as my co-host, as she does periodically from time to time, is Daria Novak. Daria, welcome to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Thanks, Rick.
Great to have you with me today, Daria. And Daria, there's so much breaking on the news today. You know, it's just Barack Obama, for a radio show like the Conservative Commandos Radio Show, Barack Obama is just the gift that keeps on giving. So much in the news. Apparently, it has now been discovered that Lois Lerner's hard drive on her computer, the one that she used to send out thousands of emails, guess what? The hard drive crashed. And just today, it was announced that a U.S. Special Operations Forces captured one of the suspected ringleaders of the terrorist attacks in Benghazi in a secret raid in Libya over the weekend. And it's the first time one of the accused perpetrators of the 2012 assaults on Benghazi has been apprehended. Daria, what's interesting to me about this is the news know where to find this guy. The media have been interviewing this guy for quite some time. Finally, he's been taken into custody. So,
well, look at it this way. Maybe the media actually did something very helpful. The U.S. government could follow the media to find them.
And it was probably all a big surprise to Barack Obama, just like everything else. So, Daria, we got a great show today for our listeners. Who are you going to be speaking with?
We've got a couple of great guests. At 3:30, actually, I should say, we're going to start with Fred Lucas. He's the White House correspondent for TheBlaze.com. Now, before joining The Blaze, Fred worked as the CNS News correspondent at the White House. He's also the author of a new book, and it's really one of my favorite books. I love history books. This is called Frequency, the story of the talk radio giants who shook up the political and media establishment. And I really recommend this book. It's fun, and I think we're going to have a good time talking to Fred today because of what happened with talk radio in the recent Virginia election in the primary upset of Cantor. So I think that's going to be a good half hour that we talk to him. Then at 4 o'clock, we're going to be talking to one of my favorite authors, Dr. Angelo Codavia, who's a former senior research fellow at the Hoover Institute, a professor emeritus at Boston U, with 14 books to his name. This is a guy who really knows what he's talking about war and peace. He served as a naval officer, foreign service officer on presidential transition teams. This guy knows his stuff. You could talk Clausewitz, Machiavelli, the theoretical, but this guy knows the pragmatic too. And we can ask him a few good questions about what's happening in the Middle East with war and peace in Iraq today. So it should be interesting. And I know you're interviewing another individual that's going to be intriguing.
That's correct. At 4:35, I'm going to be interviewing Travis Carson, who's the communications director for special projects at Frontiers of Freedom. And Travis is going to be joining us to talk about missile defense and radar systems that the Obama administration has been ignoring, okay? And we're also going to be talking about an article that was written by George Landreth on The Hill. With greater risks, weaker capability is a bad strategy. So that's going to be the conversation with Travis Corson, communications director at Frontiers of Freedom. So, you know, Daria, this story that I was alluding to when we first came on the air about special forces has captured one of the Benghazi ringleaders. It's just, to me, I don't understand this Obama administration. This guy's been out in the open ever since September 2011, 2012.
Rick, I think what we should be asking ourselves is, why is it politically convenient for this administration to amazingly be able to capture this individual this week? What else is going on in the Middle East? What are we distracting from? Well, if you look at everything else that's going on between Israel bombing Gaza, between our our contractors in Iraq, we have about 200 plus of them that we refused to help evacuate, where we had to have the Iraqi Air Force go in to evacuate them from military bases where they were trying to put together whatever kind of aircraft that we were giving to Iraq. I mean, there's just so many stories going on right now. It's almost like, let's put something else out there that's going to distract from all the problems that we're having, so nobody can blame this administration for all of our failed policies.
Dari, this is why I love doing the Conservative Commandos radio show with co-hosts like you and have guests on the way we do. Is I learned so much, and to be honest, Daria, I overlooked that point. So thank you so much for bringing it to my attention. And boy, it sure does fit. It sure does fit. Right at the time when things are looking the bleakest for the Obama administration, he seems to pull this rabbit out of the hat.
Well, in Iraq, look at with everything that's happening, with almost half their country being overrun, where the Iraqi military are actually abandoning their posts in Kirkuk, in Mosul, different areas in the north, and the Kurdish areas, that we now have to go in with our special ops guys, which probably, I guess, should be Rangers and some others, and, try and straighten things out. I'm not so sure that's a good idea to start with, but, what do you do? If that becomes the headlines, then Washington is going to be blamed for bringing us right back into warfare. And we do have troops on the ground in Iraq now. So I want to say, what the bleep is going on? I thought we were supposed to be getting out of there. And this is one thing I really want to talk to Angelo Codavia about in his book, War and Peace, or book about war and peace, I should say, To Make and Keep the Peace. He says that when you go to war, that you have to have an end goal in mind, and that is outright winning. Mm-hmm. You don't go in with these little sorts of off and on little actions like this.
I like to call them surgical wars, Dari. I like to call the wars that we're involved in ever since Vietnam, these little surgical wars. Well, we'll hit them here, but we won't hit them there. We'll do this, but we won't do that. We'll bomb that, but we'll leave that alone. These surgical wars do not work. To win a war, Dari, you've got to totally destroy the will of the enemy to fight a war. That's what we did in Germany. Exactly right. That's what we did in Japan. We totally destroyed their ability and their will to fight a war. And that's not what we try to do anymore. We try to hit this, but we'll leave that alone. And the other thing that I find is interesting about the capture is that apparently they're going to be, the Justice Department is going to bring him to the United States to try him. There's been calls from the Republican leadership to take him right to Gitmo, see what other information we can get out of them, try him down there. But no, Obama and the Holder administration, my God, they want to bring him to Gitmo. They want to bring him to the United States and try him here, which I think is going to be another three-ring circus.
I can't imagine that ending well at all. This administration, though, has so many scandals going on at once. You almost need to have an Excel spreadsheet to cover them all. I mean, it's just unbelievable with the developments, Rick. I mean, I have to tell you this. Last night, I was with Congressman Darrell Issa in New York City at a meeting, and he was asked a question about Lois Lerner and what was going on. And he said there are so many unanswered questions. He said, we can't even get to the truth. It's impossible. Not only was she not answered question, but when we tried to ask questions about, okay, only person who's missing emails is Lois learner, and only for the 2-year period in question. And that's the only place that they don't seem to have backup or any kind of system where they can recover the emails. Any of our listeners who are involved in business today or use a computer know you back up a computer. How can the U.S. government, only for this one woman and only during the time frame in question, lose or not be able to come up with the files? There's so many things like this going on. Daryl Issa says, of course she lied. We know it. We know what's happening. But the problem becomes whether you're a domestic with the lowest learner, with IRS scandal, with everything going on here, or you're overseas looking at what's going on in the Middle East. And we haven't even covered Asia or the different things that are going on there with China, North Korea, and things. There's so much to distract us, Rick. I don't know how we can keep track of it all as citizens.
Well, that's what we try to do here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. But we are up against a break. And we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, the way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and around the world on the internet with our new internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us, and don't forget, you can now hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Hey, check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioShow.com and CCRShow.com. Don't go away. Darry and I will be right back.
They say I'm nasty, but oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS4automation.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Daria Novak and Rick Trader. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, please log on to patriotsride.org. That's patriotsride.org. And for a rebroadcast of yesterday's show with Kevin Wade and J.D. Manier at 5 o'clock, log on to cprworldwidemedia.com, cprworldwidemedia.com. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show tomorrow afternoon, place for that is vigilantlibertyradio.us. And don't forget, you can hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Daria, yesterday we had, actually Kevin Wade and J.D. Manier had Robert Spencer on as a guest. Robert Spencer is the director of Jihad Watch, a program of the David Horowitz Freedom Center, and the author of over 13 books. And apparently there's some breaking news coming out about Jihad Watch.
Well, yes, as we know what jihad means, well, they got very upset in the Middle East, apparently, about what Robert Spencer was doing, and they normally have cyber attacks on their Jihad Watch website, but there's been a new campaign mounted. They call it distributed denial of service, but a cyber attack that's putting as many as 1 million requests per hour against their site to cause the server to collapse. Now, I won't name the company that's trying to fix it for them, but one of their experts, one of their cybersecurity experts, said that, quote, they've never seen such a virulent and persistent attack in all of the years of working on protecting websites, unquote.
Wow.
Now, as you know, this is unbelievable because the amount of money and resources these people are putting into trying to take down Jihad Watch tells me that they must be pretty successful at what they're doing.
Wow, that's interesting. I just logged on to the site. Fortunately, I was able to get on.
Well, good. That means the company is able to fix it. But you know what? When you have to build a firewall and rebuild it because of the attacks you're getting, to me that tells me that's the kind of website I want to go to and find out what's happening, because they must be telling the truth. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any threat to the jihad.
Right. Well, let's give them a little free publicity here, Daria. It's www.jihadwatch.org. It's jihadwatch.org, O-R-G. We like to support our friends here in the Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
You know, and we do. We need to get Americans out there looking at all of this information. And unfortunately, as I've often said, it's like a shotgun approach. This administration puts out so many different attacks on things, failures to do things. It's only you keep your head spinning. I mean, it reminds me of The Exorcist, where that kid's head's going around 360 all the time. That's what I feel like some days when I'm trying to keep up with everything that's happening in this nation. So what I tell people is, you know what? It's woken us up. Now we have an opportunity because of all these things. What are we going to do with this information? How are we going to change the direction of the country? Because we, the people, control the country. Big bankers can do something, Washington can do something, but we have the power of the vote. And unlike any other nation that I know of, we can kick their sorry butts out of here. And that's what we need to do this November.
Well, I like that idea. Hey, Daria, I wanted to change directions for a minute because something else has caught my interest. Publishing Reports, says that Hillary's book is a bomb. In an email this evening, a veteran publishing source calls the latest Hillary Clinton book, Hard Choices, a memoir of her State Department years, a, quote, bomb. The source is referring to early but underwhelming sales figures. Quote, between us, they are nervous at Simon & Schuster, says the source, who gave permission for his email to be published. Quote, sales were well below expectations and the media was a disaster. According to this source, Simon & Schuster Insider, they sold 60,000 hardcovers the first week and 24,000 ebooks. The publishing house was hoping and praying for 150,000 print the first week. The 60,000 represents less than 10% sell-through based on what they've shipped, says sources.
Wow.
So apparently, well, maybe people aren't necessarily ready for Hillary Clinton, despite what you hear everywhere else.
My first thought was, I wonder if Bill Clinton's going to have a big Amazon bill from buying his wife's book.
Well, you never know.
That is unbelievable. But you know what? People are tired of Washington hierarchy, tired of Washington kings and queens running around thinking they're better than the rest of this country. We want the people to rule again. We don't want to be told by the left-wingers in this country that we're stupid, we don't know better, we can't rule ourselves, as President Obama said, that we are too little-minded, as he called the American people in Europe. You know, I think that Hillary Clinton is not going to be their nominee in the end.
You don't think so?
I don't think she can make it. No, I don't know who they're going to put up yet. It may be a struggle, but I don't see her.
Well, they got that Joe Biden out there. They got that Joe Biden out there in the wings. He would be one. How about Andrew Cuomo up in New York? He's the new liberal darling. God forbid.
Cuomo might be one that that tries to make it. You hear talk in New York about him possibly running.
I'll throw another name at you. I'll throw another name at you, Daria.
I'm sorry, Rick.
That's okay. I'll throw another name at you. Cory Booker, the Barack Obama clone from New Jersey. By the time 2016 hits, he will have served about 3 years in the Senate. That's actually more time than Barack Obama served in the Senate before he started to run for the White House. So there's a few names for you. Reportedly, Hillary received nearly $14 million advance, as some the publishing house will unlikely to make back. Good. Let him put out that kind of money. Let him take that kind of loss.
Wasn't it just last week that she was making a speech and said that when they left the White House they were broke? And hadn't she already sold her book then?
No, she just sold her book recently. You know, but she said, you know, I read that too when she said that when they left the White House they were broke. I find that hard to believe. But they're not broke. They're not so broke now, are they? They got 14 million of those Simon & Schuster dollars, you know, for a book that they can't sell. You know, the 60,000 in sales represents less than 10% sell based on what they've shipped. So, guess what, Hillary? Maybe you're not as popular as you and Bill think you are. So I think that's good news.
You know, Rick, it kind of makes you think she didn't do anything good as Secretary of State. She was a poor manager. When she was asked what were her major accomplishments, she had a hard time coming up with what they were. So maybe the book doesn't contain anything worthwhile.
There you go. She was also a very poor senator. What'd she do as senator the time that she served in the Senate? I think that was a rather undistinguished time in her career, you know?
I just don't. I just can't see her having the finger on a nuclear button.
Oh my God! Do you remember that ad she ran in 2008 when she was running against Obama? Who do you want to answer the phone in the White House when it rings at 3 o'clock in the morning? In other words, wouldn't you trust Hillary to be there? What is going on at the State Department with what's going on in Benghazi? The answer is neither. We don't want either Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton to answer that phone in the White House when it runs at 3 a.m. Hey, Daria, we're coming up against a break right now, so just hold on there if you will. And you're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Daria Novak and Rick Trader, coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia. The way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern, and around the world on the internet with our new internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us, and don't forget you can hear our show anytime, day or night by calling 832-999-1199. Hey, please don't go away. Right on the other side, we're going to have Fred Lucas, who is the White House correspondent for The Blaze.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittlesportshop.com.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Benier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Daria Novak and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the CCRS studios. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening, please log on to patriotsride.org. That's patriotsride.org. And at 5 p.m., when we end our live broadcast, 5 p.m. this afternoon, if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of yesterday's show, please log on to CPRWorldwideMedia.com, CPRWorldwideMedia.com. And you can also hear a rebroadcast of today's show tomorrow afternoon at VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And don't forget, you can hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. And Daria Novak, we do have our first guest with us, and the honor of the introduction is yours, so please take it away.
And you know what? It really is an honor. I've both read this man's book, which I love, and I've met him in person, so it really is an honor. We have with us this afternoon Fred Lucas, who is the White House correspondent for theblaze.com. Now, before joining The Blaze, Fred worked at cnsnews.com, also at the White House. Fred is the author of a new book out, and everybody, you're going to need your pencil, so make sure on the break you get it, because you're going to want to buy this book, and we'll repeat it at the end of the half hour. It's called The Right Frequency, the story of the talk radio giants who shook up the political and media establishment. Fred, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
I am really glad that you're back on here, because there is a particular election that I would love to talk to you about that just occurred recently. We've been talking a little bit in the past about what's going on in Virginia, but not really about what happened with the media in the campaign where David Bratt won in a long shot election against House Majority Leader Eric Cantor. Now, you know the radio business. Did the radio have any influence over this election?
Oh, yeah, it actually had huge influence. Laura Ingraham came down. Actually did some campaign rallies for David Bratt in this election, and also, several national radio hosts got involved directly in this and talked up David Bratt, interviewed David Bratt, endorsed him on the air, and this actually, I think it apparently did get the public thinking about talk radio, because it's actually been good for the right frequency. It did get a nice bump right after that election in its Amazon list. So I was happy about that from a personal standpoint. But yeah, it's definitely had that was something that definitely influenced that election, and it's something in the right frequency that talks about how talk radio in past elections have had a profound influence on several races throughout the country, throughout the past decade.
Can you give us any examples of where you think talk radio has made a difference?
Right, yeah, certainly I think in the 2010 elections, you had several hosts that had a big impact. Going back to 1994, Rush Limbaugh, he was fairly new in the public conscience. He had a big impact that year. And in two examples, Bob Grant, who had a big audience in the New York, New Jersey area, which you guys are familiar with him, of course. He had like a heavily influenced the 1993 election of Christie Whitman over Florio, and got voters really riled up over Florio's tax hike, and also did what similar to the Cantor situation. It is something that people thought was impossible, and that was he got voters motivated and fired up to beat Mario Cuomo. People in 1994 thought Mario Cuomo was unbeatable, and running against this little-known state senator, George Pataki. That was something that Bob Grant really made happen. Another example, I mentioned Laura Ingraham earlier. She sort of introduced the nation to Scott Brown back in 2010 when no one thought that a Republican would win Ted Kennedy's seat. And Mark Levin was someone who introduced America to Marco Rubio, who was challenging Charlie Crist in a Republican primary in Florida. Rubio got into that race and was polling in single digits, around 8%, I think. Charlie Crist had the blessing of all the Republican Senate leadership, and we saw that change substantially. Mark Levin started it, other talk radio hosts jumped in on that as well.
Well, it sounds like it's actually had more influence than I realized over what was happening in politics at the time. Does it seem to you that there are more people on the right involved in radio than there are on TV as political commentators?
In terms of carving out a niche, and I think in terms of certainly successfully, yeah. I think so. I think something that TV, part of the mainstream media, has been so dominated by the left that we've seen that probably think of talk radio.
Well, one of the things that I was thinking about after reading your book was the fact that when you're on television, you have seconds to do, sound bites. It's really not coherent thoughts that are that long. You really don't get any type of in-depth analysis of what's going on in the political scene. There just isn't time. On the evening news, you get a one-sentence, clip of what the president said. But on talk radio, I think it actually is a good medium for conservatives because we do get in-depth into the issues. If anything, I think that's one of our faults as conservatives, that we have all the data and the truth on our side with these stories that we talk about, but we maybe not as good at getting the messaging out in short sound bites. So I don't know if you think that it's fitting, but it seems to me that it's a pretty good balance that way.
I think that's a good point. One of the people I interviewed for the Right Frequency was Bill Bennett, and he made a similar point that conservatives, folks on the right, like to talk more about issues, get more in depth, whereas on the left, that it's very much a bumper sticker type, quick soundbite type of thing. So that it was a medium made for conservatives, and that's why liberals largely have failed. They've tried to succeed at talk radio and have had a tough go at it. I write in the book, The Right Frequency, about various people who made a shot at it. Air America was a flop. Al Franken and Al Franken got another job in the Senate. Rachel Maddow was another person from Air America. She got another job at MSNBC, but most of the other folks at Air America lost their jobs, and so that was not a good venture. And some numerous other folks that tried to make it in Jim Hightower and others who tried to make it on the left on talk radio, and that is an entire flop.
Now, your book goes into the history of some of the politics. Are there any examples from early on where radio had an influence in politics, or is this more of a new phenomenon?
Well, I think it really began to shape politics a lot in the 1990s when there was sort of a renaissance or rebirth of radio, and radio's influence as its own medium. There was a time, I think, when radio had kind of faded as its own entity and its own medium for a while, and at least in terms of having a strong political voice, and that came back in the 90s. But the book does go in a lot into the earliest days of radio, when it was the only game in town almost, radio newspapers at least, and so you did have some early folks. Walter Winchell was one guy who I do write about in The Right Frequency. Also, there is Fulton Lewis Jr., who is not as well known, but he was a pretty influential guy in the sense that he was credited for pushing Richard Nixon onto Dwight Eisenhower's ticket in 1952. Nixon actually told him, and this is in the book, there was a conversation between Nixon and Lewis, and Nixon said, "This never would have happened if not for you." So there were a lot of power brokers on the air in earlier days as well.
I think it's really interesting. I absolutely love the book. And, I'd love you to stick around with us until after the break. We're coming to you live from the CCR studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with our new Internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos radio show at any time, any day by calling 832-999-1199. So stay with us until after the break, and we'll be right back with Fred Lucas.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's A-B-A-C-O. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And this is the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Darian Novak and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, and around the world on the internet via our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantLibertyRadio.us. Don't forget you can now hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. And our guest this segment is I call him the unofficial White House correspondent for the Conservative Commandos radio show, but he is the White House correspondent for theblaze.com, and he is the author of the new book, The Right Frequency. It's all about the world of talk radio. Fred Lucas. Fred, welcome back. Thanks for holding through that break.
Oh, no problem.
Fred, let's talk for a minute. You know, you and Daria were talking about some of the people that has had a big influence on talk radio. And let's talk for a minute about that Laura Ingraham. And as you and Daria were talking, Fred, about Laura Ingraham's effect on politics, she helped David Bratt get elected. She played a major role in Scott Brown's shocking 2010 election for Senate in Massachusetts. Is this bringing her up the rungs of the ladder as far as prestige in talk radio, Fred? And is she now approaching the esteem of that Rush Limbaugh guy?
I'm not sure if anyone does have that esteem just yet. But yeah, I mean, this was, I think, a big coup for her. I mean, in terms of putting her back in the limelight quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Fred, you know, FM radio, in my opinion, is, if you want to hear music on the radio, you go to the FM side. But has talk radio itself saved AM radio?
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's absolutely the case. It was in the pretty much the late 80s, after they got rid of the Fairness Doctrine, which is written about extensively in The Right Frequency. There's actually 2 chapters on the Fairness Doctrine, one on the abuses and one on the process of getting rid of it. But yeah, back to AM. Yeah, the AM was, you know, oldie stations sometimes. I mean, or things that people didn't necessarily listen to a lot, whereas the newer music was on FM. And then you start having more of these talk shows, more and more of that, and they became really popular. And Rush Limbaugh was credited with saving the AM dial and burgeoning, just creating this new industry that blossomed up around him. So that's something that that sort of was a media revolution, I think, that happened. And that is an amazing thing about radio. I mean, it's survived and thrived despite all the media revolution. Of course, you mentioned about the FM dial. FM dials having some issues because people are getting their music from their iPods now.
Yeah.
Basically, you can plug that into your car. So more and more FM stations are carrying talk radio.
Right. And Sam, what about the role of the internet as far as talk radio goes? There are so many talk radio shows on the internet. For instance, the Conservative Commandos radio show. We are on a terrestrial station here in Philadelphia, WNJC 1360. But there are also 3 or 4 different internet stations that pick us up and broadcast us through the day. Can you see a time where talk radio is going to be exclusively on the internet?
I think there's even a possibility. I mean, all media is going to move one way or the other towards the internet, or at least be multi-platform. And we're seeing more and more. Print publications are doing their major work on the internet, and kind of. Who knows exactly how the major newspapers are going to be around in print form,
right?
As more. So I think we're going to see a whole lot of everything just moving into the digital world. Everything and with the multi-platforms, with broadcasting and print and just all around information providing.
Hey, Daria, it was kind of neat last week. Kevin Wade and myself, we went down to the Frontiers of Freedom Reagan Gala dinner in Washington, D.C. that was honoring Gary Sinise. But on the way down, we were able to listen to the Conservative Commandos radio show with you and Sharon Engel. Because, now we also people can hear our show from their phone by calling 832-999-1199. Well, Kevin hooked it to his Bluetooth that went into his radio. So Kevin and I heard you and Sharon all the way down to Washington, D.C., all the way to the end of the show.
I am so sorry. I hope it didn't put you to sleep with me talking so much there. I had a good time, seriously, on the shows all the time. But I was just thinking when Fred was talking about this, of all the influence we are having. And then I thought about the international aspects of it, Rick. If you think about communist countries and what they practice, it's control of the free press, control of the media. It's written right into our founding documents, our documents of freedom of speech, freedom of the press. I'm wondering if talk radio, as these nations like China start opening up, will have more of an influence over their politics in the future. We see China opening up somewhat economically, but not yet politically. Fred, I'm just wondering, do you think that talk radio could go beyond just the United States? Chinese obviously having their own broadcasters, or Russia or things, but do you think it could have the same sort of liberalizing influence in communist nations?
That would probably lead to the end of communism, I would think.
Well, Fred and Daria, didn't we see this with Radio Free Europe? I think that's that's a terrific example there, Radio Free Europe.
Cold War and so forth. Right. There were American broadcasts going into Europe, into the communist countries, and that might be like back to the internet. I mean, we might see more of an issue where people are able to access things through the internet in these, dictatorships and so forth, like China, which is liberalizing economically, but like you said, it's not politically, or not a freedom of the press or freedom of speech yet. But that's something that as media revolutions keep happening, it's going to be harder and harder and harder for these regimes to keep different opinions out.
Well, Fred, how can the U.S. government shut down radio? I mean, we see threats to it. We see, different bills that are possibly proposed in Congress. Do you think that they can do it to us in America?
I don't think so at this point. It seems quite unlikely, but it's something that people need to keep vigilant guard of. And this is something, back to the fairness doctrine, which I mentioned. There was actually, I wrote about this in the right frequency, but there was a campaign, it was called during the Johnson administration, called Challenge and Harass, in which they would go after any radio voices that they didn't like, the administration didn't like, and they would target them with fairness doctrine complaints, get other outside groups to target them, and reach the point where people would take these shows, stations would take these shows off just to get out of the headache of it, even if they could win the complaint situation. So that's something that could potentially, there are still FCC regulations out there, even though it's not the fairness doctrine, there's still FCC regulations that could be abused, such as some of the equal time regulations and so forth, and public affairs programming requirements and so forth. So, but those were loosened so much during the 1980s and during the Reagan administration that I think there's a buffer between that happening again.
Vic, wouldn't that be amazing if we can actually use radio to give two sides of the message out so that the American people hear the truth again? I think that would be wonderful.
Right. And this is something, really for a long time, post-New Deal, I think, that's something that the book gets into. The media was a point in which the media had moved to the left on a lot of issues, and the country had moved to the left on a lot of issues. And there was this fairness doctrine and other things that were out there, other rules that were sort of choking a lot of dissent. And because of that, you didn't really have much of a conservative movement in the country for a few decades there. And then you did have the Goldwater movement that led to a nomination, but he didn't do it as well. But that's eventually you did have more voices, and as more voices came up, the conservative movement became more strong.
Well, I think that's absolutely incredible. I'm not sure if we lost Rick or if he's still there, but I do know that. Rick, are you still there?
Yes, I am. I'm still here.
Okay. I didn't hear you for a second, but I really want to plug this book because I do read books for the show, and this is one of my all-time favorite. In part because it's history, in part because it's the current times. It tells us so much, and it really helps, I think, to understand the transition of the media and what's happening. It's really a worthwhile buy. So, Fred, would you mind one more time tell them about my favorite book and where they can get it?
Okay, well, I really appreciate that. Favorite. The best place to get it is on Amazon. Right now, there's actually a sale for the Kindle version. It's only $2.99. That's Kindle version only, but there's also some deals on the hardcover and paperback. So Amazon, and also you could buy it if you like from the publisher's website. That's historypublishingco.com. So that's the best place. Barnes & Noble, it's pretty much everywhere books are available. So.
Well, thank you so much. I'm not able to hear Rick at the moment.
Yeah, I'm here, Daria. Don't worry, Daria, I'm here. And Frank, I want to thank you for coming on and joining us today. And with that, we're going to take a break. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Daria Novak and Rick Trader coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, and of course around the world on the internet via our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us, and don't forget you can now hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Hey, today's show, like all our shows, brought to you by the First Amendment, and it is protected by the Second. Don't go away. Daria and I will be right back with our next guest.
They say I'm nasty, but
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? One company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's A-B-A-C-O. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Manier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando Radio Show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
Now hear this. Man your battle stations.
You can call the Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Daria Novak and Rick Trader coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia. The way we do Monday through Friday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern. And also on our new internet broadcast partner, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And don't forget, you can now hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling from your phone, 832-999-1199. And Daria Novak, we do have our next guest with us, and will you please make the introduction?
Again, I am so excited because this introduction comes not only for a person, but also for his book, which I read cover to cover actually twice now at this point. Another great book. Today we have with us Dr. Angelo Codavia, I hope I'm saying his name right, who is a former senior research fellow at the Hoover Institute and professor emeritus of international relations at Boston University. Previously, he served as a U.S. naval officer and foreign service officer. Dr. Codavia also served on the Senate Intelligence Committee and is author of 14 books. I can't name them all, but a few of them: War Ends and Means, No Victory, No Peace, Advice to War Presidents, and a new book that he has coming out that we're going to talk to him about today, To Make and Keep Peace. Dr. Codavia, welcome to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. It's an honor to have you on.
Well, thank you for having me.
I just love your latest book entitled To Make and Keep Peace Among Ourselves and With All Nations. And I was writing down some questions before when I was reading the book, and I came up with so many things I wanted to discuss with you that I thought I'm going to have to go take one of your classes sometime just to be able to listen to all the great thoughts that you have on here. Now, I'm not even sure where to begin, but I guess one of the first general questions I want to ask you is, in today's world, given how we conduct warfare today, and it seems that we're constantly in some type of conflict, how do you suggest that we try to ensure peace in the future?
Well, the idea is to fight fewer and to win more. That's the look. The essence of statecraft is to aim at peace. The essence of war is to aim at peace. We have been fighting wars without any kind of even an attempt to figure out what kind of peace we are fighting for and what it takes to get it. This is an imbalance between ends and means, which is fatal. It ends up in exactly what we've got, namely endless war abroad, which is bringing about a homeland, so-called homeland security regime at home, which really primarily empowers government to do what it wishes to the people that it likes least. I mean, this is a recipe for national dissolution. Endless war abroad is a recipe, finally, for civil war at home. This is what history teaches, and this is what my book tries to show.
Do you think we're close to that?
Well, we're certainly on our way. How close we are, I don't know. But look, all of history teaches that that governments in the course of war will take the opportunity to clamp down, not so much on foreign enemies, which are far away and hard to get to, but on the people who trouble them most and most directly, namely their domestic political enemies. This is, again, this happens all the time. It is perfectly natural and perfectly awful.
Well, if you think of how Clausewitz defined war, you go back into the academic side of it, we should not go to war unless we're out to win that war, and that we think we can win that war, too, which not only military, obviously, political willpower is needed. Do you think that we have that political willpower today left in this nation, in Washington, in the people?
Well, you asked two separate questions, Washington and the people. Washington, the answer is absolutely not. That's why I wrote the book. The people, absolutely so. But the people have, we the people, have really only begun to realize that we are governed by incompetence. And we have only begun to try to take the government back from this ruling class of incompetence. Their incompetence with regard to war is as dangerous, or arguably more dangerous, than their incompetence with regard to economics. The incompetence with regard to economics can only produce poverty. Incompetence with regard to war and peace can produce defeat and tyranny. And this is what we're getting. The so-called war on terror, which was declared by George Bush against nobody in particular, has ended up in really the waste of American lives, the gutting of our forces, and the heartening of America's enemies, and this awful so-called Homeland Security regime, which nominally is directed at everybody in the world, everybody regardless of age, sex, status, or what, but in fact is increasingly aimed at the ruling class's least favorite people, namely conservatives.
Well, you know, in your writings, you've talked about establishing an early American statecraft's understanding of peace.
That's right.
Now, to me,
That's right.
now maybe you could explain that, and then also talk to the fact that it seems to me in the 1700s, at the beginning of this country, it was easier to divide our business, so to speak, between the world, what's theirs, and Americans, what is ours. Today, with the integrated global economy, the internet, the world travel, with people running around the world for business, for pleasure, isn't it harder to go back to that understanding of peace?
Not at all. As a matter of it is a mistake to think that things were simpler back then. As a matter of fact, no sooner had the U.S. government come into being that the French Revolution broke out. And when it did, Americans, like anybody else, took sides. And this taking of sides about a foreign conflict, in which we were not directly involved, but in which some people wanted to get involved, turned into a tremendous domestic political quarrel. George Washington himself was subjected to all sorts of obloquy by his fellow citizens. This is a man who had founded the country, and he was called all sorts of terrible names for his stance with regard to foreign affairs. It nearly split the country and occasioned the installation of the first attempt at so-called Homeland Security. That was called the Alien and Sedition Acts, which was a tremendous curtailing of Americans' political liberties. It's always been difficult to divide our business from their business, but Washington said, number one, you ought to do so, and number two, when it is our business, it ought to be pursued very strenuously. He wrote to Lafayette one day that, as a bit of fatherly advice, because Washington was something of a father to Lafayette, that as regards the Barbary pirates, the thing to do was not simply to dally with them, but to destroy them, to annihilate them completely. Washington was all about peace, but he sure was no pacifist.
Well, I find that really interesting, because today, with, if you want to call it again, the war on terror, as you say, with this undefined, in a sense, enemy, or at least a non-state enemy to some degree, it seems like, in one hand, we say we need an all-out victory, that's the only acceptable outcome, but then we really don't go out and do that. And it reminded me, sort of going back to Aristotle, when he wrote about the good, if you will, that it's defined as that at which all things should aim.
That's right.
I mean, are we really going there? Do we have that? Is that going to be our understanding in the future, or are we, in this day and age, so used to temporary patchwork fixes that we can never get to that end goal where we do have peace? Is that going to be the nature of man in the future?
Look, the nature of man is fixed. It always has been, always will be. Well, there are times when there are statesmen worthy of their job, and there are times when there are not. Right now, we've got a bunch of yahoos running around Washington pretending with bodyguards and limousines, but who really don't know what they are doing. You talk to any ordinary fellow on the street, pull up to a gas station while you're putting gas in your car, you say, well, what should we do about these countries that harbor terrorists? Well, the fellow who's filling up the car next to you will say, well, God damn it, annihilate them. He will say about the wars today what Barry Goldwater said about the war in Vietnam. If you're going to fight it to win, to destroy the sons of bitches. Otherwise, don't fight it.
Makes sense. Now, I hope you will stay with us until after the break. We'd love to continue this discussion with you. We're coming to you live from the CCR studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with our new Internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, and VigilantRadio.us. So stay with us, and we'll be right back after the break with Dr. Angelo Codavia.
They say I'm crazy, I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the Sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
If you'd like to hear our rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, please log on to www.patriotsride.org. And for a rebroadcast of yesterday's Conservative Commandos radio show at 5 p.m. this evening, please go to CPRWorldwideMedia.com and click on the Listen Live link. And if you haven't had enough of us, you can also listen to a repeat broadcast of today's show tomorrow afternoon by going to VigilantLibertyRadio.us, and please click on the Listen Live link. If you haven't had enough, you can still call us 24/7, day and night, at 832-999-1199 and listen to the show. Now, you have got to do that because this Dr. Angelo Codavia is one of the most brilliant people writing about war and peace in our time, and you really want to find out what he has to say. So get your friends to listen to the station. This is going to be a fantastic show. Dr. Codavia, thanks for staying with us through the break. As I said, I have so many questions for you. Your writing is incredible. I've listened to you, and others can too, on Heritage in May. I believe it was the 23rd of May. You gave a talk. Extremely powerful. It was incredible. I wish I was in the room with you at the time. Now, I was with the State Department in the Reagan administration. I worked a lot of China and Latin America. And reading your book, one of the things that came to mind is as we tried to open up China, I was there from 79 to 89, we really wanted to come up with coherent policies. We saw China as a country where there was going to be conflict, but we didn't have to be enemies with that state. But every time we tried to come up with a long-term, coherent policy to keep the peace, we would run up against special interests from either other agencies, from private sector, from other governments. And I found it was very difficult and really prevented us coming up with long-term solutions. Why do you think today we seem to opt for these temporary quick fixes in our foreign policy?
Well, we've got the kind of people who don't know any better, can't do any better. It really is, as you learned for your time in government, personnel is policy. And we do have once upon a time, the State Department recruited strictly by merit, strictly by exam. That's no longer so. They simply recruit their own kind. And so what you have is a kind of negative selection of elites, people, each new generation worse than the previous one. It is a distressing thing. We ran into it. I was on the Reagan transition team for the State Department, and we saw that as we tried to staff the department with Reaganites who had positive agendas, we were in fact stymied by all sorts of business people who were primarily interested in getting along and getting themselves contracts, et cetera, et cetera. There is corruption in government, and that's a fact.
See, I'm just not sure how I think a lot of people know what we should be doing, but we don't know how to get from here to there. Well, I don't know what the answer is.
They don't think. In Washington, I've run into relatively few people who are concerned with anything other than their own advancement. Very few debates about policy are really about policy. They're about how I can get myself or my friends this leg up in the world. There's a great deal of that. For example, with regard to missile defense, we have been stymied in doing one of the most important things for securing our own peace, namely defending ourselves against missiles, precisely because there are so many interest groups that are saying to officials who neither know nor care any better, look, give me the money for this program of mine, and you will be my friend.
You know what I'd love to ask you right now? Hillary Clinton, I can't think of any of her accomplishments when she's Secretary of State. If you were Secretary of State tomorrow, you have the knowledge, the history, you have an understanding of the political process, of theory, as well as the pragmatic. What would you do for the State Department? What would you prescribe that would be our future under a code of ethics?
The first thing I would do is to increase the raw quality of people. It is to do recruitment and advancement strictly by exam, because right now advancement is simply by brown nosing. And then, if I could, but this would be a long shot, I would have people read Thucydides' Peloponnesian War again and again and again to learn something from history. We have a largely illiterate generation of statesmen who simply don't know that they're playing with fire and what the temperature of this fire is and how it has been managed in the past. There's a lot to learn and very little appetite for learning these days.
You know, it seems the more powerful we become, the less confident we are in our foreign policy, in our actions. Do you think that's true?
That is certainly true. But again, that has very little to do with power. It has to do with the quality of people whom we select. And in this regard, as I point out in my book and in other books I've written, there is virtually no difference between the Republican and the Democratic parties. They both draw from the same kind of person and promote the same kind of person. History has shown that they have managed foreign affairs in virtually identical ways. George W. Bush and Barack Obama, different in rhetoric as they are, have pursued virtually identical policies.
You know, when you said that about both political parties, I think that was my awakening, because after graduate school, I worked at the State Department before moving to teach at a university, and I would tell my students about this. I was shocked when I went to work at the State Department that there were, I'll call them for simply, bad people on both sides. I thought that the people who agreed with my political views, we were the good guys, and we would come in and we would straighten everything out, and we were waving the flag, and we were proud of America and all the good things that I was raised with. But I felt that we failed really to adequately define what was in our national interest and to carry it out. I don't know if it's possible.
That's absolutely true. What you just said is absolutely true. We succeeded. I was trying to get good people hired in the State Department, and mostly failed because the interest groups had a bigger grip on the Reagan administration than did the Reaganites. The Reaganites were a minority, a small minority in the Reagan administration.
You know, I have to tell you one quick story. Rick, you're going to love this one. You've never heard it. When we had the Contras issue back in the early 1980s, we were trying to get funding for them down in Central America. We put out a biography at Defense Department on the leaders within the movement to talk about their education and the fact that these were not part of a dictatorship, that many of the people in the movement weren't even born during that period. That booklet was brought over to the State Department, thousands of copies. And all of a sudden, before we were to take them to Capitol Hill, they disappeared. Now, this was a Reagan administration policy to support this. We later, after the money of I think it was around $20 million they were going for, after that hearing, the hearings were over and the vote was over, we discovered where some underling who had previously been a political appointee in a Democratic administration hid them, on the 5th floor in a maintenance closet.
Jeez.
They did not want that information getting out, and that's the level to which we have obstructionism in the State Department.
You know, Daria, with that, let me ask Dr. Cordovilla a question. Doctor, it's my opinion that we never learned our lessons from Vietnam, and that's politicians losing a war after the armies have won it. Seems like we're dealing with the same exact thing here in Iraq, here in Afghanistan. Do you believe that we'll ever win a war again?
The good Lord has mercifully hidden the future from us. So there's no way of answering that question. However,
well, with the present way wars are fought.
What you say about Vietnam is absolutely true. As I mentioned earlier, Barry Goldwater had it right. You either fight to win or you don't fight at all, and we didn't. The armed forces in Vietnam were constrained to do a whole bunch of things that were militarily unsound. In an earlier age, men of substance in the military, men of character, would have resigned rather than do them. Similarly, today, we have had, in the so-called war on terror, so 30,000 Americans crippled for life.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they have been forced by policy to operate day in, day out in what are, in fact, replenished minefields. This goes against every tenet of military ethics. You don't do that to your troops. Mm-hmm. If I were still an officer of the Army.
Doctor, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're coming up against the break, and I wanted to give you an opportunity to give the title of your book one more time, and where can people get it?
The title of the book is to make and keep peace among ourselves and with all nations. Get it from Amazon.com.
And Doctor, you know, the other book title that you were talking about when she made the introduction to you is I would like to see you get the ear of the people sitting in the White House. Advice to the War Presidents.
Advice to War Presidents. That's a good book published by Basic Books. The latest one is To Make and Keep Peace, and that is to be had from Amazon.com.
Dr. Angelo Cordovale, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Take care. God bless.
Bye-bye.
All right, we are going to take a break right now. You're listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Daria Novak and Rick Trader, coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet via our new internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And don't forget, you can now hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. Please don't go away. We'll be right back with our next guest, Travis Corson.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811, PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
The Obama attack on our Constitution continues. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com and join J.D. Manier and Christina Lamb and hundreds of Reagan conservative commandos who demand our country return to its founding documents and principles. We are part of the nation's oldest and largest GOP volunteer organization, the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. We register voters, endorse conservative candidates, and dig deep to give you the truth on the big issues. We are fighting to do what Lincoln proclaimed 150 years ago. Let the people know the facts and the nation will be free. Help support the Conservative Commando radio show with your donation today. Log on to INRASuperPAC.com. INRASuperPAC.com.
The Conservative Commandos Radio Show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Darian Novak and Rick Trader, coming to you from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia, and of course around the world on the internet. If you'd like to hear a repeat broadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening, log on to patriotsride.org. And at 5 p.m. when we end our live broadcast, if you would like to hear a repeat of yesterday's show, place for that is cprworldwidemedia.com. You can also hear a repeat broadcast of today's show tomorrow afternoon at vigilantlibерtyradio.us. Don't forget to click on the Listen Live links, and you can hear our show anytime, day or night, by calling 832-999-1199. And joining us now is Travis Corson. He is the Communications Director for Special Projects at Frontiers of Freedom. Travis has also served in the Bush White House and has spent time at various conservative organizations, including the Heritage Foundation, Americans for Prosperity, and the Rhode Island General Assembly. Travis has spoken at several conferences, including the Conservative Political Action Conference, the Road to Majority Conference, Freedom Fest, and the State Policy Network. He regularly appears on One America News Network and has been quoted in several publications, including the Washington Times. His works have been published at various other outlets, including the Daily Caller, Human Events, American Spectator, MSNBC, CNS News, and Breitbart. Travis, welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us. Travis, to get started, tell our audience a little bit about Frontiers of Freedom, what you guys do.
Sure. So Frontiers of Freedom was founded by former Senator Malcolm Wallop after he left his time in the Senate. And Senator Wallop, during his time serving, was very instrumental in pushing a lot of the values that you and your listeners stand for, freedom, limited government, a strong national defense, and various things like that. Now, Senator Wallop's claim to fame is that he was actually responsible for introducing President Reagan. He wasn't president at the time, but then candidate Reagan to the idea of missile defense through the Strategic Defense Initiative at Paul Laxalt's ranch. So strong national defense and missile defense are definitely a big part of what we do as an organization, as well as continuing on the Senator's legacy when it comes to things like less government regulation and energy freedom and other things like that.
Well, Travis, let's talk a little bit about missile defense. George Landreth, who's the president of Frontiers of Freedom, wrote a very interesting article a couple of weeks ago that was on The Hill, and it was titled, "With Greater Risk, Weaker Capability is a Bad Strategy." And Travis, George started out the piece, "Vladimir Putin is willing to invade neighboring nations to rebuild the former Soviet-era empire. Iran is on the cusp of developing nuclear weapons. North Korea is developing more powerful and accurate ballistic missiles. China's military is growing," and I can go on and on. Travis, we see a lot of bad things happening in the world as far as our enemies and former enemies strengthening themselves. But we must ask our lawmakers, Travis, with everything that is going on militarily in the world today, why are we weakening our military rather than strengthening it? Or maybe better yet, Travis, we should ask our lawmakers, why are we letting Barack Obama do this?
Absolutely. Well, I think one of the other things that is very relevant to missile defense is not only are those actors that you mentioned on the Rhine. There was an estimate that came out from the Missile Defense Agency recently that said there are currently 6,300 ballistic missiles that are outside of U.S., NATO, Russian, and Chinese.
6,300?
That's expected to rise to 8,000 by 2020, by the end of the decade, by about 25%. So not only are these missiles on the rise, they're becoming more sophisticated, they're developing greater ranges, and they're being able to carry those. So not only are the traditional actors on the rise, there are also a lot of rogue actors that we need to keep an eye out for and be concerned about. Now, with that in mind, it's been very disconcerting that the defense cuts that we've seen that have come forward. And some of that was due to the sequester, which unfortunately we can all agree that there's definitely waste, fraud, and abuse in places where we could save in the military. But by blindly cutting both the wasteful programs and the essential programs basically the same way, it doesn't allow us to prioritize our spending in a way that will help secure the national defense. One of these places is definitely our missile defense.
You know, Travis, in George's article, he mentions a few of the weapon systems that we need that are not being built, or systems that we need that are not being fully implemented. Could you talk about some of them?
Correct. So one of the best systems that we can implement right now is called the Army-Navy Transportable Radar Surveillance. It's called the TIPI-2, basically, is the nickname for it. And what this basically is this is a high-tech radar that allows us to see from over 1,000 miles away to discriminate basically anything the size of a basketball or larger, and allows us to discriminate basically between what's a dud, what's not a threat, what's a decoy, and what are those actual missiles. Now, in 2011, when we were about 6,000 rogue ballistic missiles, we were supposed to build 18 of these radars. Between sequester and this other radar system that was supposed to be built, that number was cut to 11. Now, after reassessing, it was found that that second radar was more expensive and wasn't as proven as the TIPI-2 radar, so that system was cut. Congress replaced 1 to 12 radars, but unfortunately that leaves us 6 short of the 18 that were originally deemed necessary to defend the homeland and defend our allies around.
Well, Travis, where would those 6 radars have gone that now is unprotected?
Sure. So right now there are radars in Turkey, Israel, Japan, and Guam, and basically these can intercept. These can keep an eye on. We can keep an eye on where they're coming, and there are a few that are based on the West Coast as well. One of these would be going on our East Coast, which is currently sorely under-defended from threat, and the rest would be scattered around some other ally places around the world, but definitely the East Coast is one of the highest concerns because you've got so many high-value targets for potential enemies, between our nation's capital and between our most populous city, yet we're not defending them as well as we should be in order to really defend our citizens.
Well, Travis, that's very alarming because wasn't it just a month or so ago that the Iranian Navy was patrolling off our East Coast?
Absolutely, and that's something that has concerned a lot of missile defense watchers, is the fact that while our current capabilities may be able to allow us to track and defend something that comes from thousands of miles away, if you're launching that close to the homeland, we may not have the capabilities at this time to detect and respond to an attack in time in order to accurately defend our homeland.
Well, Travis, I think a lot of people think of an attack like a nuclear attack. However, one of the co-hosts here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, J.D. Manier, has been informing our listeners about an EMP attack and how a missile launched off our coast by a rogue player like the Iranians could potentially disrupt our entire electrical grid to the point where it could be damaged and not be repaired for, and I'm not just talking weeks, but months or maybe a couple of years.
Absolutely. The EMP is certainly a concern for a lot of folks. And basically how that would work is if you launched a rogue...
Oh, Travis, I have to apologize. I have not been watching the time. We're up against a break. Could you please hold through the break?
Absolutely.
And we'll pick it up talking about the EMP on the other side. And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Darian Novak and Rick Trader, coming to you live from the CCRS studios, that of WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia. and around the world on the internet via our internet broadcast partners, CPRWorldwideMedia.com, PatriotsRide.org, VigilantLibertyRadio.us, and don't forget you can hear our show anytime, day or night, from any telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Now, there are no extra charges for this call, but make sure you call from the phone with unlimited long distance. Be right back.
Oh, how I'm longing for the day when I'm back at Orchid Bay, where the silver water glistens in the sun.
When is the last time you raced a small boat across wide open water? Tired of snow, traffic jams, cold weather? You need a refreshing change of scenery, a world away. The Bahama Islands have vacation rental homes and apartments. Enjoy spectacular nature in the Abacos Islands. Enjoy refreshing Caribbean beauty, fishing, snorkeling, scuba, the beach. www.enjoyabaco.com. That's ABACO. Enjoyabaco.com.
As I sail across the Sea of Abaco, smiling 'cause I know only one more mile to go.
Enjoyabaco.com.
Hi, this is Bob Viden, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Viden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
And welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show with Dari Novak and Rick Trader. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show at 10:10 this evening Eastern Time, log on to patriotsride.org, patriotsride.org. And at 5 p.m., if you haven't had enough of us, you can hear a rebroadcast of yesterday's show by logging on to CPRWorldwideMedia.com at 5 p.m. Eastern this afternoon. You could also hear a rebroadcast of today's show tomorrow afternoon at VigilantLibertyRadio.us. And our guest this segment is Travis Corson. He's the Communications Director for Special Projects at Frontiers of Freedom. And we're talking with Travis about missile defense. And Travis, when we went into the break, you and I just started to talk a little bit about EMP and how the East Coast was supposed to be set up with one of these new radars and is not, and it's leaving us kind of exposed.
Absolutely. So, as we had mentioned, you had mentioned that there were some Iranian ships that were recently patrolling along the U.S. coastline on the East Coast. And one of the concerns about an EMP, basically what they would do in a situation is launch a low-yield nuclear device from a high altitude over a city, and like you had mentioned, that would potentially take out the electrical grid. And you're right in the sense that it could take months or years to get those grids back up, because there's a long lead time on those transformers that would be destroyed in such an attack, and they come from overseas. So that's certainly something that we're concerned about, and something that you want basically to be able to defend against. Now, not only, just to get back to this radar that we were discussing previously, not only does the TIPI-2 radar have the ability, what it has done in some cases is has been paired with a THAAD missile battery, and is basically serves up the instructions or the orders to these missiles to basically give them the directional order to take out any hostiles. So something like this, if we were to put it on the East Coast, would certainly be a strong link in the fence in order to defend our East Coast from such an attack.
And, Travis, I'm thinking back to the Gulf War in 1991. We saw how important the Patriot missile system was to Israel at that time. And this would be, and that's 23 years ago, and I'm sure the technology is much better, so it certainly would give our East Coast some protection there, correct?
Absolutely. Not only have the missiles improved, but the radars have improved as well. So not only they're seeing greater success rates in taking down hostiles and intercepting them and detecting them, the technology just overall has improved and is providing greater protection. I think you've seen that in Israel, what they've done with basically the Iron Dome there, ability to detect. And that's one of the important things that this radar does, the ability to detect and differentiate between hostiles and non-hostile missiles, which is why one of the reasons why that system is so successful, and one of the reasons why these TPY-2 radars are very effective as well.
Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we're speaking with Travis Corson. He's a communications director for special projects at Frontiers of Freedom. Travis, on the other line, I do have my co-host, Daria Novak, who wants to get into this conversation. Daria?
Oh, yeah, Travis, I've just got to ask you a couple of questions here. I'm just listening to what you're saying, and it reminds me, when I was working with the State Department, this is back in the early 1980s, and we looked at Chinese missile launches and capabilities, we could basically say 3 out of 4 launches would fail. They'd either blow up or they'd fail to meet target. Their telemetry was not very advanced. As you say, they've really advanced today. But it's not just China. What concerns me are rogue nations like North Korea and the missile technologies they have. They raise money for their government through the sale of super Ks, the counterfeit $100 American bills, human trafficking, drugs, small arms. And now they're selling missile technology to terrorists, to countries like Venezuela who are not friendly to us. My understanding is with the North Korean missiles, shorter distance, they can go from Venezuela to Atlanta. The longer missile could reach as far as New York. They have a financial incentive in North Korea to sell to these nations that are not necessarily friendly to us. How do we stop it? Is there anything we can do before we're actually left just trying to target what they're sending into our airspace?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I think was interesting that you brought up was basically the financial implications of what North Korea has been doing with their missile program, how in some cases they've been using it either to extort concessions, as they've been doing from the West with some of their missile launch tests, or conversely, they've been selling the technology to actors that pose a threat to our country. Now, these radars, while they are $170 million a piece, which may sound like a lot, but in the scheme of DoD terms is really not that much. But when you conversely think about what the cost would be if there was an attack on a major American city, not only in treasure but in lives, it really drives home the point where it is a great investment and a great thing for the American citizen. So, like I said, we have 12 of these, 16 that we thought we needed in 2011. Now, granted, that was right after the Russian reset. That was before North Korea got active with their tests again. That was before Russia started getting more active in Eastern Europe again. So the world has really changed, and we need to look into reinvesting these and really getting the defenses up, like you said, before it's too late, before we're in another situation like we were in the 1960s in a Cuban Missile Crisis-type standoff, except this time with North Korean get down in a Venezuela-type situation.
Well, Travis, I would take it even a step further. Yes, we need to do this, but do you think that foreign leaders from these other middling powers, if you will, that may not be as friendly to us, do you think that they believe that, we carry a big stick and we'll use it? Do you really think that they would believe that even if we had this defense, that we would get involved? I wonder if any nation state today has any respect for America and for our power, or whether we're fighting two battles, one to protect ourselves and one to reform our image, so that becomes part of that strength, part of that message. Like when Reagan talked about missile defense. Before there was ever a missile developed under their program, whether we saw a videotape of missiles on a train going from one mountain to another, before that any systems were in place, people were scared of what Reagan might do. That if we were attacked, that he might attack back. Do you think anybody would even believe that we might do that today?
It's interesting that you bring up President Reagan, because there are really two ways to look at missile defense and basically a way to defend your country from a nuclear attack. There is mutual assured destruction, the fact that if you launch your nuclear weapons at me, I'm going to launch mine back, and we're going to cause a whole lot of death and a whole lot of catastrophe and a whole lot of loss. Or there's a second way to look at it, and I think this is really what President Reagan was trying to get to. And if we make the right investments, I think we can bring our country to as well, which is let's make nuclear weapons obsolete. Let's take mutually assured destruction out of the arena as a deterrent, and create a system which basically renders these missiles obsolete, because they are no longer able to hit their targets, because an effective shield has been created to defend our country. And what that would allow us to do is really take some of the human and political elements out of it that we're currently undergoing right now, and we're currently discussing when it comes to America's role in the world, and whether or not we still command the respect as a country internationally that we used to.
Hey, Travis, I'm sorry to interrupt. We're going to have to go in a minute or two, and I wanted to give you time to tell our audience where they can go to find out more about George's articles and also Frontiers of Freedom. But I think what you're talking about is just what Reagan did. That is proof how we need to handle our world situation. I think the things that are going on today in the Middle East right now are a result of our perceived weakening in the world, especially with our military.
Absolutely. Well, I'll encourage your listeners to visit the Frontiers website to get more information on this missile defense and on other ways that we can provide for our strong national defense. That website is www.ff.org. It's a pretty easy one to remember, www.ff.org.
Travis Corson, Communications Director for Special Projects at Frontiers of Freedom. I want to thank you for joining us. And Travis, I love the way George ended his article. And quoting George Landreth, former heavyweight boxing champion Muhammad Ali, known for his amazing speed, used to say, quote, "Your hands can't hit what your eyes can't see." Travis, I think that we ought to take a lesson from Muhammad Ali.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me.
Take care. God bless. Hey, Daria, I want to thank you for sitting in as my co-host today. It's been great working with you again today. We've had a great show, but for right now, we got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless, and we'll see you tomorrow on the radio.
Thank you for listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show. Huge thanks to our co-hosts, contributors, patrons, callers, and our friends at WNJC 1360 and WIFI 1460, where we broadcast live every Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern and 2 to 4 p.m. Central. Look for us on the internet at www.ccrshow.com. Until next time, we are the Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard.